All right. All right. This is going to be interesting. It is 8:58. I'll explain my wild headset here in a minute. Hopping on just a couple minutes early before 9 o'clock. It's 8:59. Give just a few more seconds here. We'll start right at 9 o'clock. Just in case you're wondering what I'm doing here, is this is the first time that I've actually done a live, and I'm actually I'm going to attempt to take some phone calls at the same time. All right, it is 9 o'clock, so let's go ahead and do this. Awesome. So you guys don't know this, but I'm actually recording phone calls for the people who call in. Anytime that there's a phone call, if we get a phone call anywhere in the middle of this, then I'll actually put people on speakerphone so that way you can hear them. But until then, you'll only be able to hear me. So I've got a lot going on here. I've got this computer here. I've got my phone here on the conference call, and I've got one of my web controls over there on the side so that if anyone does call in, I can kind of see them and kind of have some semblance of control of the conversation. All right. So, one thing I want to be able to do here is kind of lay out what I wanted to touch on tonight. All right. So, first of all, welcome to the Rob Lett Show. I'm your host, Rob Lett. So, I always open up with on our shows that we have daily. So this is going to be a first. Now, let me see how I'm going to do this. This is going to be a first because we're shifting to this format for our lives. And one of the reasons that I'm shifting to this format for our live calls is because uh, not doing so has been too iffy. And what I mean by iffy is I didn't really know how many people would be on a live when I start at 9. That's one thing. So sometimes there'll be a few people on. Sometimes it might be no one on and just me. The other thing was with me traveling, I have a busy travel schedule where I'm kind of 10 days on and 10 days off. Sometimes I'm out of the state for 10 days and then I'm home for 10 days, but I don't know which time zone I'm going to be in. So sometimes I don't know if I'm going to hold the live until the week comes up. I don't know if I'm going to hold the live at 9 or not. It was just too many if situations. So I just said, you know what? Why don't we run this like a radio show? Because I like the live interaction. That's the reason why I wanted to do a live in the first place. In case you're wondering, well, what's the big deal about holding a live? The main thing is that I like the live interaction. I don't want to always just upload a video and then you respond in the comments and then I respond back. There may be times that you'll have some ideas in real time that can be helpful to me as a influencer or producer of the show. And vice versa. There be some maybe some things that just having that camaraderie with everyone at the same time, it just adds for a different dynamic as opposed to just uploading and you responding later. Okay, so I'd like to be able to meet you guys. Anyway, I decided to run it kind of like a radio show. So with a radio show, in other words, if you remember before, I didn't really come prepared with any particular topic. I kind of wanted you guys to be able to drive some of the topics, but not knowing how many people are on. Sometimes if you don't show, then I don't really have anything to talk about. So this time, I didn't overdo it because this is the first time I'm shifting the format to sort of a radio show type format. So I did put a few topics in here, but nothing lengthy because I don't want to be talking for a long period of time. And I didn't want to put a whole bunch of research into this. But one of the things that I thought would be helpful um, in doing this kind of format as well is, first of all, when I do regular shows, it's usually just one topic, if you recall, right? I just focus on one topic, and that topic I may be talking for 10, 15, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour. I've had certain shows, right? But there's always some shows that, or I should say, some topics that kind of went past me. It went past me because either I got busy or because there are several things happening at once. There's no way you can make a show about every single one of those. Remember, I talked about uh, how much work it takes to produce a show to begin with, right? So, just for me to produce one show, for me to produce a show for several different topics would take forever. So, in this format, without me having to do so much in-depth research, I can just kind of skim and talk about a few things that are going on in the news and then invite you to kind of chime in and say something about it. So that's what I did. I kind of just went through a few little items that I've been noticing in the news, and I said I'll talk about some of those things. But what I'll do here first, before I get to some of those things, let me see. I did make some notes of some things that I wanted to touch on, more like housekeeping stuff that you guys should know, especially for those of you who are subscribers. Mainly when I'm talking to some of you who watch this show, some of you are on my email list. Some of you have gone to roblett.com and you're on my email list. You found me a lot of different ways. Some of you came from a political group that I'm a part of. Everyone came in differently. But if you hear me talk about, so if you hear me talk about emails or did you receive an email, if that doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. Okay. Anyway, so oh, so one thing that I like about, I'm just looking through my phone. I've got, if you see me looking off to the side, I put little notes in here, little things for me to remember that I wanted to talk about. So one of the things that I think is also kind of beneficial, at least from you guys' perspective too, about doing it in a radio show format, is that you can treat it like a radio show. If you're not near your computer, for instance, if you're driving and this, the topics happen to be something that you're interested in, and my show happens to be something you're interested in. If you're not near your computer in the future, which you can do because I'll try to keep that same conference number the same, then all you have to do is just call into the show. And while you're driving, if you're out, you don't have to dial into the computer, log into the computer. You can just dial in and listen, or you can dial in and actually give some feedback on it, just like we are on the radio. Okay. All right. So let me talk about the progress of the show. So how's the show been going? As you know, I think we launched sometime back in August of last year. I think it was August of last year. And so since then, it's been going pretty well, considering the fact that this was really, I don't even know why I got my glasses on here like I'm reading something, because I don't wear glasses all the time. I only wear glasses when I'm reading. But considering the fact that this was really something that we were just kind of playing with initially, I think the show's doing well. We've got 20 some odd shows now. I think it's like 25 maybe. That's probably 30, 35 videos up there because all of them are shows. We got 785 subscribers, at least as of the time of this particular live now. So we're about 215 subscribers short of 1,000. We'll talk about that in a second. So it's been growing. I forget what the watch hours are. Watch hours is just like, in order for a channel to be monetized, I probably said this before, in order for a channel to be monetized, it has to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. So that means all of you who watch this collectively, if you watch however many shows you end up watching, I don't know how YouTube gathers all of the hours collectively, but it has to be at least 4,000 watch hours, and then the show gets monetized. So we're pretty close. We're 200 and some odd subscribers short of 1,000. So I'll be really happy when we reach that landmark or milestone. Let me see what I mentioned here. Well, that's why I keep wearing my glasses, because I keep looking through this, right? Some other milestones or things that we're working on behind the scenes is roblett.com. We're starting an optimization process. And what I mean by an optimization process is there are things we're doing behind the scenes to be able to make the show eventually better. So I want it to be a multifaceted channel, not just a YouTube channel, but YouTube channel. And the whole premise of roblett.com is just in case, YouTube gets a hair up their butt and decides that they want to shut something down. If we continue this process of constantly collaborating with each other and you having my contact information and vice versa, then we can reach a point to where, gosh, we can host shows without necessarily having to be on anybody's app, right? But in addition, there's some goodies that I got planned on roblett.com. If you guys haven't been, if you're tuning in for the first time and you haven't been there, um, go ahead, put your contact information in there, because down the road, you're going to see a lot of different conservative events, a lot of things that I don't want to mention because I don't see other people doing them and I don't want to start giving them some ideas early. Okay. But it's going to be a lot of fun. The other thing that I'm doing for optimization is I'm using more tools behind the scenes that can kind of help improve the experience of being online. I'll talk about some of those things a little bit later. And our latest show, in case you haven't seen, our latest show is The Left's Failed War on Poverty. So if you haven't already seen that, that's a good show to watch. Uh, it kind of it's kind of reminiscent. The reason why I made it is, and I mentioned this in the show, the reason why I made that particular show is because I was watching Dan Bongino one night, and he asked a question that I thought was pretty good. The question he asked was, so Biden ran on Build Back Better. Is it better? And he said, I'm not asking whether you think this thing or that particular thing is his fault. I'm just asking, is it better? That's what he ran on. I mean, that's fair, right? I mean, everyone asked that of Trump when Trump ran on Make America Great Again. The first thing leftists asked was, when was America ever great, right? That's a stupid question. But they asked it, right? So if someone runs on Build Back Better, I feel like I can ask, well, is it better? That's all we're asking. And I do some analysis going all the way back to one of Lyndon Johnson's speeches when he first declared the war on poverty. And you'll find some interesting verbiage in that speech that almost is reminiscent of Joe Biden. All right. But let me talk about some of the things that I just wanted to touch on in the meantime. Some of the things I wanted to touch on in the meantime was, I'm seeing in the news, I saw there was a few different news stories. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time tonight going through a lot of different things, but there were a few news stories that I thought were interesting. And one of them is, I think I saw Joe Rogan getting excited about the fact that it looks like the United States is on the verge of national marijuana, right? On the federal level. It will no longer be where marijuana is just legal in this state or that state, but illegal in other states. Looks like we're on a borderline of getting really, really close to making this legal on the federal level. What do you think of that? I'm just curious what you think of that in the comments section, or if you happen to be somewhere within earshot, but you can't see me, give a call into the phone number. Where's the phone number, by the way? The phone number here is 267 807 9574, and the access code is 988173 pound. Again, that phone number is 267 807 9574, and the access code is 988173 pound. You can call in and either by phone or you can just chat on the screen. All right. So, what do you think about that? About the idea of having. Sorry, I just looked up here on the screen and just seeing if I lost this web control. What do you think of the idea of having marijuana legalized throughout the country? One of the things that crossed my mind is I don't see it as a bad idea. I mean, I know some people are for it, some people against it. Give me 1 second here because something switched on the screen and I want to see if I can get back to the screen that I had. Okay, good. I'm back to where I was. Some people think it's a good thing. Some people think it's a bad thing. For those people who think it's a good thing, the reason that they think it's a good thing, I'd be one of those saying I'm in favor of the legalization of marijuana. And keep in mind, I don't smoke marijuana, never smoked marijuana. I never smoked regular cigarettes. Okay. I couldn't care less. But the reason that I'd be in favor of it is because when you think about the decisions that the police departments have to make in terms of the allocation of resources, right? On one hand, you may have someone who's experiencing a home invasion. So on one hand here, someone's life is at jeopardy, is at stake. They're being forced to do something by criminals. And yet the police can't respond in an appropriate manner. Why? They can't respond in an appropriate manner because on the other side of town, within the same city, you got someone who wants to smoke, somebody who wants to smoke. You've got someone who is trying to grow something in their backyard, right? You've got someone who is attempting to make a purchase of a drug, right? And but the key here is that they're wanting to do this willingly. So you've got the police department trying to make a decision over saving lives versus stopping someone from doing something that it's their own choice, doing something that they're choosing. Did I say that right? Um, doing something that they're doing something willingly, right? It's their own decision, and the government's just stepping in to tell them no. Here's the people on the flip side. Whenever I hear people arguing against the legalization of marijuana or legalization of drugs, the argument that you'll typically hear is, "Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that because now what if this person, gets high on some drugs? What if this person smokes this weed or whatever, and now they get behind the wheel of a car and they hit a school bus or whatever it is. They destroy something, they destroy somebody's lives." The answer that I would say in response to that is, well, don't we have laws on that already? Because understand that's a separate crime, right? Understand if you hit someone and they find out that somehow you were impaired, I mean, there's law against that, like distracted driving, right? Or negligence, right? All of these are laws already. You've broken a different law that has nothing to do with the personal use of drugs, right? Look at it from the standpoint of alcohol, right? Think back. Matter of fact, this is a perfect segue. I'm a mafia buff, so I've watched all kind of mafia movies. Okay, and one of the things I was talking about with a leftist friend of mine is I said, I want you to think back for a minute. I want you to think about this for a second. If I told you that someone's car got blown up yesterday, if I told you that there was this mass killing just happened yesterday and a bunch of people got shot, if I told you that all these people got beat up at a bar the other day, and then I explained finally what the reason was, and I said, you know what? They were doing all of this for beer. You probably would laugh, wouldn't you? You would say, wait, what? Yep, blowing up of the car, the mass killing, the shooting, the violence, people getting beat up, the carjackings, all for beer. You would say, what a ridiculous thing for someone to commit all this violence for. You can get beer at your local grocery store, down at Publix. You can get beer at a convenience store. Why would someone go through all this violence? The reason why I'm mentioning this is to remind everyone that there was a time when alcohol, right, was illegal. That's what prohibition was about. And you had all these mobsters fighting over territory for something today we think is so ridiculous we can't even fathom why the police would waste their time over bothering somebody who just wanted to drink in a bar or at home, or they're driving, taking it somewhere for their own personal use, but they're not drunk. It's the most ridiculous thing ever, and yet that once was the law. So same thing here we're asking about with marijuana is, yeah, if somebody is smoking at home, if someone is making their purchase, if they're transporting it somewhere, if they're growing it, I don't understand what that would have to do with me. Now, as we pointed out, someone getting behind their car, someone operating some dangerous machinery, someone flying a plane. If that's ever comes out, or if it's been proven to show some sort of negligence, 100%. But that's a separate charge, right? Because you could be on it. Let's be honest. There are many different things that can actually distract someone from driving. Police don't write tickets for you eating, but do you know they can? Oh yeah, I've seen it in the news before where someone got a ticket for eating a Wendy's, some Wendy's, one of those a number. Give me a number one, one of those packaged hamburger type things or whatever. I think it was in Georgia, as a matter of fact. They don't write tickets for it normally, but they can because it's distracted driving. You're not focused on what you're doing. So to me, it's the same thing. But what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Because it sounds like I think I saw something recently that said it just maybe it just passed the House, so now they're waiting on the Senate. Uh, but what are your thoughts on it? I'd like to be able to hear something from you on that subject. The other thing that I saw here in the news, let me see, go back to my phone. Did I touch on everything I wanted to say about that? Oh, Biden's cracked down on ghost guns. Have you seen that? I saw it in passing. Seemed like I saw it in passing on Twitter that Biden was trying to do this crackdown on ghost guns. First of all, what are ghost guns? Um, from what I've been able to find out, ghost guns are apparently do-it-yourself guns, as they call it, guns that don't have a commercially applied serial number, guns that are assembled. So I don't know if it's so much that they're concerned about the serial number. Sounds like they're more concerned about the serial number as opposed to I don't know because they say do I see them talking about do it yourself guns is what they're concerned about, but then I saw also that they call ghost guns anything that doesn't have a commercially applied serial number. But to me, and for those of you who own firearms, you kind of know what I'm talking about. This is the reason why I'm pausing. Some firearms right now require you to assemble them in pieces, right? And so sometimes one of those pieces in and of itself, there's nothing dangerous about it. So when you say you're concerned about the commercially applied serial number, the first thing that crosses my mind is to which piece? It has to have a serial number on what part? So I don't know. That to me, this is reaching. Do you think it's reaching? I think it's his first toe in the water of trying to ban guns. I don't recall what the ghost gun legislation is. I guess this is their first little test to see how far they can encroach into removing the Second Amendment from everyone, removing your rights from everyone from being able to have a firearm. Is to start with a certain type of firearm, to start with certain classifications of firearms. But it's ridiculous to me. It's just ridiculous to me. So I wanted to hear what you guys thought on that. But I really wanted to reach out to a couple of my friends who are in the Marines who've assembled so many guns and know that a lot of these guns come in kits. So when you start trying to say, "Oh no, I'm not banning guns. I'm banning the assembly of guns." Mm. It's the same thing. It's practically almost the same thing because there's a lot of these guns that come in parts like that. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. If you've been following this, if you know any more detail about what the legislation is concerning ghost guns. The thing that's funny, the thing that's been funny to me to watch is the left's meltdown over Elon Musk and Twitter. That has been really weird to me. It's really been weird because of the response from even some of the employees. I saw an employee that got on Twitter and he said something about this is right after um, Elon had bought like was it 9.2% of Twitter stock or something like that. Right after that, someone went to Twitter and said they're putting in their resignation. I was like, how how wishy-washy are you to put in your resignation because someone owns shares in your company, right? But the whole thing that's been developing is interesting to watch because that was the first thing, watching how the employees reacted. And then the next thing was when Elon was talking about being possibly being a member of the board. It was interesting to watch how many of the board members seemed to be nervous about it. All these people were stressing about the meeting with Elon Musk. And I'm like, what the hell are you nervous about? Are you nervous because he's thinking about coming in and allowing people to talk? I don't understand. What are you nervous about? I mean, to the point of resigning, to the point of, I saw something online, people talking about the idea of a poison pill where they're trying to make it look like the company is a bad investment, whatever it is to brush Elon off. And it's starting to backfire because now, as you already know, Elon rejected the offer to be on the board. He rejected the offer because, according to the rules, that he couldn't, if he was going to be a board member, then he couldn't have any more than, I think, 14.9% stake in the company or something like that. And of course, his goal is to own the whole thing. Because a few people, I told one of my friends, I said, there's a few people who seem to be so excited about the idea, the premise that if Elon Musk could get control of Twitter, that he would put Trump back. And my friend, of course, understands about stock, and he says, I don't think that would happen. He says, a lot of people are saying that, but I don't think that could happen because he's not the only person on the board. And so I said, yeah, I said, I thought about that too. So I said, I don't know why everyone keeps mentioning that so much. And then I was watching I was listening to a radio show, and someone mentioned that maybe what Elon has in mind is to privatize Twitter and not have it the board like that again. And he said, that changes some things. He says, most likely he explained it kind of like renovating a house. He says, there's so many things I'm sure he'd want to change in Twitter that it's almost just like ripping everything down and just maintaining maybe the foundation. So he probably would need to privatize it because there would be too many people, too many chefs trying to stir the pot as a public company. And anyway, I said all that to say, ironically, the person who said that on the radio show was 100% right. He said that his goal was most likely to try to privatize it. And when I looked up, that's exactly what he did. He made an offer because he wants to own 100% of it. He doesn't want anyone on the board. So this is really interesting to watch how people react to this. So I'm just sitting back and watching how, like I said, there's so much talk now about this idea of a poison pill and anything that they can to discourage Elon from being able to own the company. So I'm just wondering where this is going to be. And I guarantee you, if Elon does pull this off, there are going to be some new rules. You mark my words. I guarantee you there will be some new rules set in place about who can own companies and how much they can own and all of this kind of stuff. The left will change the rules because they're starting to realize that they never imagined someone would do what Elon Musk is doing. Remember back when conservatives first started complaining about being censored? Well, what the response was from the left? The response from the left was, well, if you don't like it, then start your own company. And then guess what? Republicans did start their own company. And then guess what? Amazon went and pulled the server from underneath them, right? It was talking about Parler. He's like, okay, we did what everyone says. And then you're still not happy with that. Why? What does our servers have to do? How is that affecting your business at all? Right? So it just lets you know there's a lot more that is bothering them than they say. And so now Elon Musk has kicked it up a level. He's like, okay, so you want to play that game? Then instead of me starting my own company, how about I just take over your company? Ouch. There's going to be some new rules. I guarantee you someone's going to start proposing some new rules because of this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. All right, so let's see what else I got down here. Go back to my phone. Oh, I saw something that was posted by Eric Erickson, and he was talking about the possible 2024 surprise. And I thought this was interesting. And here's what he was talking about. Here's what his Twitter post said. He said, rather than voting, he's talking about Trump. He says, rather than voting for a president who can only give us 4 years and that's it, doesn't it make more sense to vote for a conservative who could be here for 8 years? And man, it had like over 4,000 likes when people were, looking at the response. A lot of people are saying we're so deep right now into socialism. Biden has taken us so far to the left that we really need a good 8 years to start cleaning some stuff up. And unfortunately, since Trump has already served one term, that means he can only serve one more term. And it was a good point. So what Eric Erickson was trying to say is, wouldn't it make more sense for Republicans to, instead of, hyping up the possibility of Trump returning and voting for Trump, wouldn't it make more sense to give someone like a DeSantis a chance? And DeSantis is kicking some butt, man. He's kicking some butt. As a matter of fact, what I just finished explaining when I was talking about the whole dilemma with Twitter and Elon Musk, uh, it was DeSantis that I saw in a conference who said, "Hey, we think Twitter may have just violated some ethics rules because Elon Musk made an offer to, to buy Twitter, and Twitter somehow ignored their fiduciary responsibilities." I used to be in stocks. I don't know much about stocks anymore. But he says, Twitter somehow ignored their fiduciary responsibilities by practically ignoring that offer. And now they're entertaining some other offers. They're entertaining people who will have more shares than Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is no longer the largest shareholder now, because now it's a can I say the word like peeing match or pissing match? Can I say that? But that's what's going on right now, is everyone is so nervous about the fact that he was the largest shareholder and that he just made an offer to buy out the company, that all of a sudden now they're trying to do this poison pill thing. But according to DeSantis, they're going to do an investigation now and see whether or not maybe Twitter can end up being sued. Elon Musk has even put out a tweet talking about that would be very costly mistake for them to make, to ignore his offer. So it's very interesting sitting back and watching this. Anyway, how did I get back on that? I was going in the direction of about I was going in the direction talking about Eric Erickson and mentioning that maybe people should vote for DeSantis. And he's got a good point. I'm going to say this, and hold on, someone's chatting something here on the screen. First Trump 4 years, then next conservative 8. I'm going to say this, and this is at the risk of somebody getting mad. There's always going to be somebody getting mad anyway. But I don't think Trump has. Don't get me wrong. Trump is definitely powerful, definitely influential, but I don't think Trump has as much power. What's the word I'm looking for? It hasn't permeated totally through the conservative movement or permeated totally through the Republican Party like everyone thinks. Because this election that's coming up here for the governor's race in Georgia, Trump, when he came to Georgia, he said something that ticked off a lot of people. And maybe he meant it as a joke, but that wasn't something to play around with. But he said, rather than Brian Kemp, he says, you know what? Maybe it's better that we have Stacey Abrams as governor than Brian Kemp. And I can tell you that soured a lot of people. Trump, I'm originally from New York. Trump is one of those that you take the good with the bad. You take the good with the bad. When the good, it's good. But when it's bad, it's like, And I don't know why he would say that. I mean, I get it. You don't like Brian Kemp. I've said this before in one of my videos. Look up what was one of the shows I did? I think I did a show called Slow Down Vernon or something like that. Slow Down Vernon. I was talking about Vernon Jones. But anyway, one of the things that I said is so many people focused on the 2020 election, and they focused on saying that Brian Kemp, ignored what his duties were, et cetera. But I told people, I said, push the election aside for a minute. You guys got to remember that Brian Kemp and Trump, they bumped heads before. If you remember, back when they were going through this pandemic thing, they were talking about whether it made sense to shut everything down. And Brian Kemp was, I believe, he was the sole governor. I believe he was the sole governor, if not the first governor, or both. But he was the one saying from the very beginning, we're going to open our state up, man. We're not trying to shut everything down. And I think Trump was fine with it. But then as all this data was coming out, it was just looking politically correct to open. And so for a while there, Trump is just one of those guys that he wants to give you an order and he wants you to follow it. And that's it. And if you come back and say something different, you've already started going down a road that is bad. And so I just wanted to remind everyone that you might be harping on the fact that, you may think Kemp should have done something during the elections, but the animosity between the two, more on Trump's part, goes way back before the 2020 election. Because right after he had that disagreement with him about how he handled the pandemic, then remember, Trump also supported, what was that guy's name? He supported another guy for the Senate. I'm drawing a blank here. He supported another guy anyway that he wanted to run for Senate. And he said, that's why I want you to get behind Brian Kemp. I want you to get behind that guy. And here comes Brian Kemp flying out to Washington with another candidate. He was like, nah, he says, I like this other candidate. He picked Kelly Loeffler, right? And so against Trump's, against Trump's judgment, he was like, all right, I told you to pick whoever the other guy's name was. I told you to pick him, but here you come, defying my orders again. And so now this is two times now. Brian Kemp has defied Trump. And so when you add the election thing on top of that, here we go again. So all I'm saying is you have to be careful. I say this to my conservatives. I'm like, you have to be careful about jumping in the middle of people's drama and taking it on as your own, because we got a lot at risk right now. I mean, look at the mess that our country is in, and it's not even a full 2 years of the Biden administration. And so now, when I talk to conservatives and I hear some of them so ticked off because what Brian Kemp did during the election, blah blah blah, they'd rather vote for Sonny Perdue, which is the other governor. I'm like, you guys are going to mess around and end up with Stacey Abrams as the governor of Georgia. What the hell are you doing? Put that stuff aside. Put that animosity aside and think about the big picture. As Denzel Washington would say, this is chess. It ain't checkers, right? And listen, whatever you think, at the end of the day, there's only one governor who has beat Stacey Abrams, and it's Brian Kemp. This is why I say I'm going to get some conservatives mad tonight, because there's a lot of people who still take that stuff to heart about Brian Kemp. But he's the only person who has beat Stacey Abrams. Okay, love him, hate him, whatever. My goal for Georgia is to win, and I want to roll with winners. The last time I checked, Sonny Perdue, he actually didn't even show up to a debate with Jon Ossoff. Jon Ossoff isn't even in the same league as a Stacey Abrams. So if you didn't even have the guts to show up to debate Jon Ossoff, I would hate to see you show up to debate with Stacey Abrams. Because whatever you want to say about Stacey Abrams, and I'm no fan of Stacey Abrams, but whatever you want to say about her, she ain't stupid. Okay? And so I just wish people would really keep that in mind, because we're going into 2024, and some people's opinion is it's got to be Trump. It's got to be Trump. And when I just saw that post today from Eric Erickson, I said, I think that there's a lot more people who are questioning. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people who love Trump, but then there's a lot of people too who realize that Trump is a lightning rod for exciting the other side of the aisle. He gets them excited and makes them want to come to the polls. And so right now, if the election were held like right now, yeah, he probably would pull it off. Trump would probably pull it off if the election were held like right now, because I think Biden's approval rating is at like 33%. I think I just saw that yesterday or day before yesterday. So, I mean, he's down in the dumps. There still would be a lot of people wanting to come out and vote, but I've even seen some Democrats, a few videos lately of Democrats patting Trump on the back. I mean, several Democrats, like Charlemagne the God. I saw what's the guy that runs the took over the Daily Show? Noah. I forget his name. I'm spacing out on all this stuff because I'm live on here now. But anyway, Trevor Noah. I saw Trevor Noah. I've seen a number of people. I've seen a number of Republicans, a number of Democrats saying something favorable about Trump. So I'm like, this is interesting. Right now, if they were holding the election, Trump would probably pull it off, even with so many Democrats ticked off about it, because he's lost so much of the independents. I'm talking about Biden, lost so much of the independents, losing so much of the Democrat base. This would be a perfect time. But now when we're talking about 2024, though, couple years away, I'm just not so sure that we'd want to do that for two reasons. One, because who knows what the feelings would be 2 years from now. And the other reason, because of what Eric Erickson said today, that just getting 4 years, is it worth it? I mean, how much damage will have been done to the country by 2024, right? Let me see what you guys are saying here. I see some of you typing. So we are not agreeing with everything Trump say, but his economics are what we need. Plus the platinum plan for blacks, for Dems to counteroffer. I'm sorry, but the ballot harvesting won't work. Won't work. I guess you're saying a second time. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love Trump, voted for Trump both times. So I just want to make sure everyone, because like I said, this is one of the areas where conservatives get mad at me because I'm not following lock and step. Don't get me wrong. I voted for Trump 2 times long before Trump even ran. I read Art of the Deal. I lived in New York, liked him way before he got into politics. All I'm just saying is, again, this is chess. It ain't checkers. And I'm just wondering, what does it get us in the long run? Just the same question I'm asking here about the governor race. Yeah, people can hold that animosity or whatever against Brian Kemp, but what does it get us in the long run if someone votes for Sonny Perdue? It gets us Stacey Abrams as governor, right? I can't do that. And so the same question I'm asking is, I like Trump. I would love for Trump to win. But in the end of the day, I don't know, it's 4 years versus possible 8. The sad part is, if everybody wanted to, support Santis, I don't know that Trump would get right behind Santis. In other words, if Sanders looked like he was in the lead, I don't know that Trump would be the type to come right behind the Santis and then endorse him and say, okay, you know what, you beat me. I'm going to support you. I don't know if Trump would do that. I wish he would, because then that would be great. So I hear what you're saying, but let me throw something back at you. By the way, you mentioned the platinum plan. Can I tell you something? And I understand totally what you're saying about the platinum plan, but ironically, I was just on a God and Government podcast recently, and John, one of the guys who runs the podcast, said something that I totally forgot about, and he mentioned Frederick Douglass, and he said Frederick Douglass once said something like, what should we do with the black man? That's what everyone is always asking. What should we do with blacks? And he reminded me that Frederick Douglass's response was, do nothing with us. That is the problem with the culture, is that everybody's got a plan for the black people. Oh, we're going to do this for black people. We're going to offer this for black people. We're going to do that. What's the white plan? Is there a white plan? Is there a Jew plan? Why does always someone have to come up with a plan for us? All I want people to do is leave me the hell alone. That's really all I want people to do. And I don't. So yeah, don't get me wrong. I thought it was cool. That Trump sat down and met with Lil Wayne. I thought it was cool that he sat down and met with Ice Cube. I thought it was cool that time he helped ASAP Rocky when he was getting locked up over in another country. I thought all that stuff was cool, that he opened the door to Kanye West. That is awesome. But I don't really need a plan. What I need, if you want to call it a plan, what I need for Trump to do, what I need for any conservative president to do, is what Trump started off doing when he first got in. If you remember, what Trump was making a big deal out of is he showed this huge stack of regulations, and he was talking about that he was slashing all these regulations. He was like, okay, we started with this big stack of regulations, and he said, all I've been doing is just been just cutting out all this red tape, stuff that we don't need, stuff that's outdated, stuff that makes no doggone sense. Why the hell are we still doing this stuff? And I knew people who were saying, man, since Trump has been in there, I've been able to open my store a lot faster. Since Trump's been in there, I've been able to start my construction project a lot faster. Since Trump's been in there, I fill in the blank. It's all because he had been reducing regulations. That is a plan that I'd like to see, but that's not a plan for black people. That's a plan, period, for Americans, is reducing government, going back to what we say as conservatives that we stand for in the first place, which is minimal government. So Yeah, the platinum plan, don't get me wrong. You can find some posts of mine where in a conservative group where where I use that when I'm debating with a leftist to say, hey, Trump is open and he's willing to talk. So it's positive in that regard. But to be honest, if I had my own choices, I'm tired of all these plans for us. So that's my 2 cents for me getting on my soapbox there for a second. Let me see what mm, he would have run 2 times anyway. I guess you're talking about Trump would have run 2 times. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you agree. Yeah. That's the hardest thing when I'm talking to not to you, because I'm sure you're conservative, but when I'm talking to leftists, that is the hardest thing for them to understand about conservatives is they always come back with, well, that's the problem with you Republicans is that you complain about the Democrats' plan, but you don't have a plan of your own. I just talked about this. If you hadn't watched my latest video, the latest show that I just uploaded is the left's failed war on poverty. Watch it if you hadn't. But anyway, towards the end there, that's one of the things that I say is I hear leftists all the time saying that's the problem with you Republicans is you always complain about our policies and plans, but you don't have any plan of your own. And I say, bull, we do have a plan. You just don't like the plan because our plan is called letting adults be adults, letting people be adults and making their own decisions. You just don't like that plan. You want somebody to spoon feed you. You want somebody to baby feed you. You want somebody to feed you everything and to handle things that you can do on your own. I called into a radio show one time and I told this was when Herman Cain was alive. And I told him, I said, hey, I watched this show. It was a movie. I think it was called, I can't even say the name of the, I just realized I can't even say the name of the show. Anyway, the movie was about pimps. Okay. I just realized in the name of the show, I can't even say the name of the movie. But anyway, it was about the life of pimps. And one of the pimps was in there trying to explain. They asked him the question. It was a documentary. They was like, how do you get a prostitute to give you all their money? And I sat back and I was sitting with my wife at the time. We were watching the show. And he said, look, he said it with a straight face. He looked at the camera. He said, I supply the food. I supply the medical. I supply the clothing. He says, all she has to do is supply the money. And I looked at my wife and I was like, did he say that with a straight face? And I was like, who's believing that crap? He said that with a straight face. I'll supply all this stuff and you just supply the money. I'm like, who's falling for that? And then as soon as I said that, I caught myself and I looked at my wife and I said, you know who's falling for that? We are. And she said, what do you mean? I was like, the American people. We do that. We sit here and say, you know what? I don't know how in the world I'm going to retire. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then the government says, tell you what, give me your money, Social Security, and I'll give it back to you. What? What are you talking about? If you supply me the money, I'll get you the retirement. If you supply me the money, I'll get you medical. If you supply the money, I'll get you housing. Just give me the money and I'll supply what you need. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing. That's why I'm like, I don't want to hear nobody else's plans for black people. I don't want to hear nobody else's plans for black people. I want to hear somebody slashing some regulations. If you're minimal government, let me see you talking about minimal government. That's what I want to see. Ooh, I got on my soapbox on that one. Anyway, it is 9:47. I did a poll. Yep. Okay. I was gonna say I did a poll on my on the channel. There's a community tab down there, and I said, hey, when we do these lives, would you prefer me to use a phone number for you guys to dial in, or would you just prefer me to leave it as chat? And I only had one person respond, but anyway, someone said, hey, we prefer the phone number. Give us an option to be able to dial in. But everybody just chatted. Nobody called in. I'm looking at my screen over here. If you ever see me keep looking to the right, that's what I'm doing because I'm actually on the phone. That's the reason why I have this microphone here is because I'm listening and I'm looking at the screen at the same time to see if anyone actually had come on here, but I don't see anyone on. I just see people on the screen chatting. But that's awesome. Hey, I'm glad to have you here. But this is the first time, like I said, this is the first time some of you came in a little bit later. So I've already said this stuff. You can rewatch this live later. I'll upload it. Actually, I won't have to upload it because there's nothing to edit. Just as soon as it's done, give it some time to render and you can go back and watch it. But the only thing that you missed is in the very beginning, I was talking about housekeeping stuff. And I just said the reason why I went with this radio type format in the first place is because when I had done when I'd done the lives in the past, it was kind of hit or miss. I didn't know if anyone was going to show up or if some people was going to show up. I didn't know if you were going to have some questions or some topics that you wanted to discuss, or if I should just bring some topics to discuss. I never really knew what to expect. Since I got a few of you on here, is there anything that you would like to discuss? I was getting ready to wrap it up, but since I've got more people that have hopped on here, is there anything that you would like to discuss, or what do you think is important? I don't know. Just type it in the chat since it looks like everyone's on the chat. I'm liking this though. I'm liking that you mentioned. Like I said, I'm glad that you mentioned the that platinum plan. That's just where I am right now. Done with plans. Whenever I hear that phrase plan now, I immediately think of Elizabeth Warren. That was one of the reasons why she went from being really popular to all of a sudden dropping in popularity among Democrats, is because everyone thought she had too many damn plans. I think I set my mode to 15 seconds. I think I set it to like 15 seconds, which isn't that long. It could be that guys just aren't chatting anything. I was going to say, I don't know if any of you are trying to chat something. Yep, looking at my screen just to make sure no additional caller hopped on here. Okay, so I'll just give it a few seconds. If I don't see anything that anyone's typed anything new here, then I'll assume that that's all you had. I'll get a little bit better. I'm here trying to catch the topic. Okay, you can appreciate you being on, Quentin, too. Thanks. You can go back as soon as I end this. You can go back and rewatch it. At the very beginning, like I said, I did some housekeeping stuff and I got into a few topics. The few topics that I touched on, you guys probably saw it either in the email or you probably saw it posted. The few topics that I touched on, let me see, I look back at my phone. That's why I put my notes here. And I didn't say a whole lot. Most of the stuff, I was really asking for some feedback from you guys. So I talked about the legalization of marijuana. Oh, I guess, you know what, since I've already said it, maybe you guys can chime in. I'll just tell you what I talked about. You guys can go back and rewatch what I said. But I'll just ask you, since you guys have been coming on now. The first one that I talked about is I talked about national marijuana. I saw Joe Rogan mention that looks like it passed the House. And so now, instead of it being legal in one state, but illegal in the other states, looks like we're going to have marijuana legalized nationally. What do you want? Don't want that. Okay, so Quentin says definitely. Oh, you definitely want that to happen. See, that's why I need my glasses. I saw a D and I thought it says don't want that to happen. Okay, so you said definitely want that to happen. Okay, what about you other guys that are on here? So Quentin says he wants that to happen. I already gave my opinion on it. You probably missed it. Since you missed it, legalize it ASAP. Okay, so counting me, we got 3. All right, I said the same thing. I said legalize it. And my justification for saying is that I was like, from an allocation standpoint, we got police who are really their hands are tied. I'm not knocking the police; their hands are tied. They have to make a decision between here's somebody over here in a home invasion and their lives are at risk, and then there's somebody over here who's got some marijuana plants in their growing them in their backyard. And I can't understand why we spend so much time with the DEA. You see those guys and all of the bulletproof vests and all this stuff and helicopters. You know how much resources we spend because someone is growing a doggone plant that they want for their own personal use, and somebody we could use that police force over here. I don't get it. And I keep comparing it back to alcohol prohibition. how we would laugh if we would think about all of the if I wouldn't say laugh, but we would think it's ridiculous if we heard about all of the murders and cars exploding and shootouts and all this stuff over beer. We'd be like, what? How dumb was that? We can say that now because alcohol is legalized. And so the same thing should be said about marijuana. We should look at all of this, DEA with these big battering rams and knocking people's doors in, and then all to find out that it's the wrong house and they shot the wrong person. And all of this stuff was for some drugs that somebody wants to use for their own personal use. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm in favor of it too. Definitely legalize it. Let me see who else typed in here. Quentin Mason. And the police know anyone who has been locked up for it. You know what? I hadn't really thought about that. That's a good point, Quentin. Well, you know what though? They're not going to go retroactive though. They're not going to. That's a good point, but they're not going to go retroactive like that. That you can't be grandfathered in that way. But I know there's going to be some people trying though. There's definitely going to be some people trying. And the police in New Jersey who can now smoke it when they're off the clock. Oh God. It's been used too much to down good people. Yeah. Yeah. Especially now that we know more about some of the medical benefits of marijuana. Again, I'm not an advocate from the perspective of having used it or anything like that. I'm just listening to people who say that they've gotten relief from it whenever they were suffering from pain or something like that. Um, I just, it's more and more. I just feel like we're behind on that, and it's been politics. So I think it's time to do away with that. So anyway, that was one of the topics that I talked about. The other topic that I talked about, I'm glad I did this rather than hanging up, rather than ending the call. Since you guys are on here now, I can at least get a chance to hear what you thought about it. The other thing that I talked about was, Biden's crackdown on ghost guns. So I hadn't done a lot of research on this. I'm not going to say that I have, but Biden's on this tear now to look at guns that don't have serial numbers, or he calls them do-it-yourself guns that you have to assemble. And again, I hadn't researched it enough to speak intelligible on it, or to make an intelligible comment about it. But it sounds like he's looking to try to ban that, or ban the manufacturers who produce that. And to me, I disagree with it I don't usually do that without me giving an opinion like that, without me knowing the whole story. But just knowing Biden and knowing that he rolls with Beto O'Rourke, and Beto O'Rourke is the guy that says, hell yeah, I want to take your AR-15 and all that kind of stuff. I know that their goal is really to stick their toe in the water towards banning guns. So if they can ban the pieces, which is what they're talking about now when they're talking about assembling guns, right? If they could ban the pieces, it won't be long before they're just saying, yeah, you know what? We're not so much worried about the serial number part. They really just want the guns. But what are you guys' thoughts on it? Yeah, I think it's a ghost. I think it's a ghost chase, because anyone with a 3D printer can make them. But I don't think they're just talking about those 3D printer. I know what you're talking about. What I said earlier, like I said, you can go back and watch this. But what I said earlier is some of the weapons, like, and I used to roll when I was on the road and taught seminars. I roll with a bunch of guys who got military backgrounds. So those guys got more guns than who knows, gosh. But my point is, a lot of those weapons, when you buy them, they come in pieces. They come where you have to assemble them. So it hasn't been clear to me yet if they're calling ghost guns just guns that lack a serial number, which I did see that definition of ghost guns, or if they're referring to ghost guns as ghost guns that are do-it-yourself type of guns. And maybe it had a serial number or it doesn't. I don't know. LGBTQ in school, your thoughts on teaching minors that in CRT? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Thanks. Okay, hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that. Let me make sure I tell you what, guys, the other stuff I covered. Yeah, I'll definitely say something about that. Okay, so I talked about that. I talked about Twitter and Elon Musk. I talked about, that's probably where you guys came in. I talked about Twitter and Elon Musk, and how Twitter, the employees, I talked about, oh yeah, you guys came in at the 2024 surprise when I was talking about Trump. Um, and whether or not DeSantis, we should vote for Trump or DeSantis in 2024. But Trump and Elon Musk, that was the other thing that I mentioned. And I don't know what you guys think of that whole debacle. What do you think about that? Um, it sounds like we're at the point that Elon has made his offer. Sounds like Twitter is trying to ignore his offer. And I've heard, I hadn't done much research on it, but I heard that Elon is no longer the largest shareholder of Twitter. It's someone else. And it's almost like they're trying to ignore his offer. But like I said, DeSantis weighed in, and DeSantis said something along the lines of Twitter's board not following their fiduciary responsibility. And it sounded like a lawsuit could be brewing. So that's kind of where I'm left with it. I don't know what's getting ready to happen, if he's going to end up suing Twitter or what. Biden said he would block that deal from happening if he tried to buy Twitter. I'm not even going to comment on that, Biden. Okay. All right. So that's what I mentioned. I think you guys are caught up because I only covered a few things. The guy from Saudi said the company is worth way more. Yeah, I did see that. Okay, so going back to Realistic First, I don't know your real name, but Realistic First. So LGBTQ in school, your thoughts on teaching minors that and CRT. Let me start with the CRT one first. No, CRT is bull. I've said this before in a political group I belong to online. It's bull. It's not just about, people keep saying, so many blacks keep saying that it's about teaching black history. It is not about teaching black history. What it's about is about destabilizing destabilizing the proletariat, destabilizing the bourgeois, which is what Marxism is. It's about teaching Marxism. Everything that Marxism is about undermining. Um, it's about undermining class. It's about destabilizing classes. It's about the poor versus rich, capitalism versus socialism, all this kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with just teaching black history. So I'm totally against CRT. The other thing that I said, and you've seen this in some of my videos too, I said this flat out, and I forget which video I was talking about. Oh, it was in the, if you hadn't seen my video that says, is college becoming a scam? I said it flat out in that one. I said, look, just think about the name, what CRT stands for: critical race theory. If you're about to teach a theory about someone's race, that should be your first clue that you're going in the wrong direction as an educator. That right there should give you a hint that you are the racist if you're about to teach theories about someone's race. And so that's really what they're claiming, that it's about teaching history, but it's not. It's teaching Marxism underlying all that stuff, but it's trying to use our race as a guise to do it. As far as all LGBTQ stuff, or however many letters they're adding now, that stuff sickens me that we're teaching children about sex like this. I've seen so many of those posts, and I keep scrolling past them. I saw that Disney's stock has been dropping. I don't know what percentage it's dropped, but no, I'm not for all this stuff. It's sad. It's really sad. This all this does is it goes back to show what I just finished explaining when you were talking about plans, right? What I want to see is a return back to minimal government, and so far back to the point that I see more people. I remember back when people were homeschooling their children, it was kind of every once in a while you'd run into somebody who was homeschooling their children. It was like a real person who was adamant about not having their child learn what was in the public school. But more and more, I'm running into not just individuals who have pulled their children out of school. I'm running into groups where this person homeschools and that person homeschools and that person homeschools, and finally they've got together and they've taught collectively as a group. So it's getting more and more popular. So what's happening is, even though the politicians haven't stood up to have enough guts to stand up and fight against what they're seeing, the public is starting to. So I don't know what's going to happen when all of a sudden they look up and so many people are pulling their children out of these schools, government schools. I don't, if I said public schools, I didn't mean to say that. I should call them what they are, government schools. So no, I'm against them teaching that in school. I'm against them teaching CRT in schools. And honestly, I wish that Republicans figured out, maybe they lack the ability to explain it and or to sell it in a way. But I wish somehow we could uh, really get across the importance of that, the vouchers, the school vouchers, where the money will follow the child wherever the child goes, right? Um, I don't know, but anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And I'm definitely not for LGBT stuff being taught or gender neutral restrooms. Disney said we want 50%. They want 50% of their characters to be LGBT at some point, and I won't ever support them in anything that they own. I agree. No CRT. They always leave out what happened in Africa before slavery that got slavery going. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But anyway, I appreciate you guys logging on. So for a minute, I thought I was going to be talking to myself, but some of you guys did log on here. So if you guys, when you get a chance, one of the things I did mention too, like I said, was more housekeeping stuff, is that we're pretty close to reaching one of our early milestones. And the early milestone is 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. One of the things I like about being able to do these lives too is I didn't mention that when I was doing this earlier, is that with the lives, because we're interacting like this, we actually can talk longer. And talking longer means that we're viewing longer, right? And viewing videos longer, that increases our watch hours. So the more people we can get on these lives, I'm going to work hard to make a commitment to do these every Friday. As soon as I say that, I just thought of something. I'll tell you in a second. I'm going to make a commitment to do these every Friday at the same time at 9. And I'll start making a commitment to do a little bit more research on the topics. I'll do it like a radio show, but I'd like to have you guys on earlier. And I know it's your schedules. You know, you can hop on when you can hop on. I got it. Everyone's got a life. But if you can hop on earlier, closer to 9, then I can talk more about some of the things that you guys want to talk about, once we're kind of done with whatever the show is. Okay. The reason why I paused and saying I'll commit to doing these every Friday at 9 is there's a couple of caveats to that. One, I mentioned my travel schedule is I'm in different states about every other 10 days or whatever it is. So it depends on the time zone, because I don't always have all of you guys' email addresses. I have some people's email addresses, some people I don't. So some nights, depending upon where I am, especially if I'm on the West Coast, it'll probably be real late. So look for something online. I'll see if I can maybe post something in the YouTube community to let you know if there's a time change. But until I say different, I'll try to stick to Fridays at 9. But my other caveat, other than my travel schedule, is I got a friend of mine that I know from another business, and he's doing pretty well on YouTube. And he gave me this tool that kind of tells me how to make my videos and stuff more optimized. It tells me all kind of stuff, what I should title my videos, when I should upload videos, the best time to do certain things. So the reason I say that is if I find out during my research that Friday at 9 probably isn't the best time, then I'll probably pick another time, and I'll let you know that too. But either way, I'm working to make this the best that we can make it. Okay. So thank you guys for attending. Like I said, after I end this, go back and watch some of the part that you missed in the beginning. But I thank you guys for coming out, and we'll continue this from now on. We'll do a live, and I got another one I'm working on right now. I'm working on. Oh, that's not really a political video. I was going to say if you didn't know, I got 2 channels, right? I got the obvious one, the Rob Lett Show, but then I got a little vlog thing there called Rob Lett Vlogs. If you saw it, that has nothing to do with politics. It's just me traveling and stuff. So I got one video that I'll probably upload between tonight and tomorrow. That's a new video, and I'm working on another video for the Rob Lett Show, and that one is about affirmative action. So I'll probably have that one done in about another week or so. I'm still doing some research on that. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for coming out. Y'all have an awesome evening, and I'll see you later. See you next time. Thanks, Quentin. Thanks. Last question. Who? Oh, shucks. I didn't see your question. You said last question. Who will the Dems run in 2024? Ugh. Ugh. That's a really good question. And I don't have an answer because yeah, I don't have an I don't have an answer. I have some ideas of people that they would run, but none of them would be even good. All right. Not Biden again. Now, that would be horrible. All right. You guys have a good night.